So this is SW321, SW421 Software Project Management at Fairfield University, and I'm talking through the slides for Wysocki version 7 for Chapter 15, Establishing and Maturing a Project Support Office. Okay, so PSO, Project Support Office, we'll define it, we'll figure out what the mission of the PSO is, what its objectives are, what it's supposed to do, where it lives in the organisation, and some of the challenges. Right? The reasons you might want to put together a project support office is you've got a lot of projects happening. If you've just got one or two projects, it's probably not really needed. If you've got 10 or 20, you might start thinking about it. If you've got 100, you need one. So you may need more trained project managers. You may have a complete lack of standards, so even for a small group of projects, you may want to have the standards across the projects be similar. And the other thing is resource contention. You're not using your existing project resources as well as you can, so you need somebody with a remit to coordinate them. So what is a PSO? It's a temporary or permanent organisational unit that provides a portfolio of services to support project teams that are responsible for a specific portfolio of projects. Right? So what does a really good PSO does? It's got a VP in there who has a seat at the strategy table. That's why the VP piece is there. And there's some sort of a portfolio management system in place that helps everybody keep aligned with the strategic plan of the business. If it's world class, it's at CMMI maturity level 5, which is optimizing. Every project manager has a practice maturity level of at least 3. The project failure rate is less than 10%. The PSO offers knock your socks off, i.e. really good, service to team, sponsors and management. All project managers have an approved and active professional development program that the PSO supports. It could have lots of different names. The project office, program office, project management office, I can read them as well as you can. Okay, so depends on the culture and the naming scheme that's being used in the organisation that's using it. Doesn't really matter what its name is, I'm going to call it Project Support Office. So here's the hierarchy of decisions you need to make. What's its mission? What are the specific objectives to meet that mission? How do we support those objectives with services? How is it organised to apply those services? Who's going to do it? And finally, what's it called? Right, here's some different ones. Provide overall management and administrative support to the Alpha program. Establish and monitor compliance to the project management methodology. Provide a comprehensive portfolio of support services to all project managers on an as requested basis. So here's an actual mission statement: to provide a comprehensive portfolio of strategic, tactical and operational support services to all project teams, sponsors and executives in order to assure the delivery of maximum business value from the investment in the project portfolio. Okay, so I think for me the key piece in there is maximum business value. Right? Even the PSO has to show its worth, so it needs to be focused on business value. Here's some potential objectives, and I'm not going to read them, you can read them as well as I can. Having some quantifiable objectives is good. Right, and here's some more real objectives. And again, I'm not going to read them, but the aim is to say what the project support office is going to do. And here's some things that the support functions the office could provide in just supporting the project, in consulting and mentoring, methods and standards, software tools, training, and staffing and development. All right, there's probably a few more in there that you could add. And here's some of the stuff that they can help the projects do. Right, keeping the schedule up to date, ensuring timesheet recording and maintenance is done, and lots of reporting. And then the final one is the project notebook maintenance, keeping that up to date so that somebody else can come in and fix it if the main project manager gets run over by a bus. So having support in the form of consulting, or for a more junior person perhaps mentoring, is very useful. Right? Having somebody that you can who can act for you as a sounding board on all of these issues is very good. So here's some methods and standards, documentation, status reporting, how do you create a work breakdown structure, the project network diagram, project selection, right? How do you decide what projects get up and running? You can do software tool evaluation, selection, maybe the acquisition and licensing, making sure we get an appropriate number of licenses rather than too many or too few. Training on how to use the software, and then actually managing installation and maintenance of it. And here's some of the things that a project support office can do for training. Right? Maybe there's PMP exams, which gives the project manager an externally validated credential. Right? That can be useful. And staffing and development, human resource development, figuring out what skills are there or not, helping choose team members, helping choose project managers for particular projects, assessing the project teams, and then career guidance and development generally. So there's lots of ways you can create a structure for the project support office. It can be virtual versus real, proactive versus reactive, temporary versus permanent, program versus projects, enterprise versus functional, hub versus hub and spoke. Right, here's a hub and spoke version where you might have a central enterprise project management office, and then there's divisions A, B, and C which have their own spoked off project management offices, and the aim is still to propagate best practices throughout the enterprise. Usually you want the PSO, or at least the enterprise project support office, to be as high up the tree as you can. Right? You want it to be up there with the standard sorts of silos, finance, IT, and operations. And there's questions about how do you staff the project support office? How do you get people in there? Maybe it's a virtual one. There's nobody there all the time, but you can pull people nominated people in at a moment's notice for particular tasks. Maybe all of the project managers in the organisation get swapped into the PSO occasionally once their commitments to other projects are done. They can move into the project support office as part of a cross-functional training for project managers. Maybe there's specific PMs associated with the PSO. And again, you can assign them at different levels of the division or maybe the department level. So we've talked about the Standards Group Chaos Report, and these are the reason IT projects fail, right? Lack of user input, incomplete requirements, changing requirements, lack of support, incompetence, lack of resources, unrealistic expectations, unclear objectives, unrealistic timeframes, or new technology. Right? Why do you need a PSO? Well, if project failure rates are too high, that's a reason to have a project support office. Maybe training from external sources isn't doing the right thing. Maybe the HR staff planning isn't effective. Maybe you're not using best practices. Maybe there's no control over the project portfolio. Maybe there's no consistency in reporting. Maybe there are too many resource scheduling conflicts, right? And then maybe there's a gap between what the process says and what you're actually doing. Right, so if you tick off more than 6 of these boxes, then you're probably best off having a project support office, right? And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 boxes. So if you tick off 6 of them, 6 out of 16, you're highly advised to. If you tick off 10 of the 16, you really should. So, 4 basic questions. Where are you? Where do you want to go? How did you get there? And how well did you do? It's just a restatement of the plan, do, review from kindergarten, really, isn't it? Okay, so the CMMI, the Capability Maturity Model Integrated, has the idea of levels of how well you're doing with its processes, and you can do the same sort of thing with project management. Right? Level 1 is ad hoc. There's support but no training. Level 2, you've got defined processes and reactive support. Level 3, you've got use of those defined processes and the PSO oversees them and is proactive in supporting. Level 4, the PSO manages the project portfolio as an integral part of the business. And at level 5, we've got optimizing. We've got continuous improvement of all project support office services and processes. Right, so here are the things you can do. Form the task force. Where are you? Assess readiness, assess client relationship, assess current project management maturity level, assess project management methodology usages, right? Define what the PSO is going to do with those questions we talked about at the beginning of these slides, and deploy it, and then evaluate how well you did against those objectives. Again, you can have a project overview statement for establishing a PSO. And it's not that hard. You can have a one-pager explaining everything, at least at a high level. So, how many projects are typically underway? What are the major reasons for failure? How many PMs have had any training? How do you tell whether they're competent? Is there an actual career path for a project manager? And how many PMs are there at each skill level? And what do we need? Right, so here's a way of looking at different aspects of project management, the knowledge areas, right? Integration, scope, and the red ones, there's a problem. The yellow ones look like we're on best practice, and the white ones are just showing the variation. And here's another way of looking at how well you're doing, right? Where are you currently? You can show different competencies and what the level of adhering to where you want to be is in each of those competencies. Okay, so here's the list of questions again. What's the mission? What's the services? What's the structure? How will it be staffed? What will it be called? What's the mission? You make up the mission, right? What support will it offer? There's some things it can support. How will it be organised, right? This is going to be very organisation dependent, but it has to have visibility to the C-suite, right? It has to have access to the C-suite. And how well did you do, right? So you can track on those project management maturity levels 1 through 5 how well you think you're doing in each area. And this is just looking at one of them, the scope management process area. So none of this is rocket science, but let's just go through. You've got to document the current state and the desired end state and how you're going to get there. You've got to implement the methodology. You've got to look at the portfolio lifecycle management process. How do you kill projects? How do you support them through to the final delivery? How do you choose them to start with? How do you measure the maturity of the different processes and practice levels? You've got to design and deploy a scorecard for tracking things. The PSO performance levels, individual portfolio, and then process improvement also. You want to identify and remove barriers to PSO successes. What's stopping you getting it done? Try and remove those barriers. You've got to help with an HR system to make sure that you have enough PMs, but not too many, right? And then you've got to look at how do you manage the PMs with their skills, their competency gaps, through training and other professional activities. And here's some things that you can identify the current maturity level, those characteristics, and then on the right hand side is the things you can do to get to the next level. Right? First of all, you've got to have the process documented. Then to move from 2 to 3, you've got to monitor and enforce compliance, for example. And move from 3 to 4, more extensive training. Maybe you have actual staff managers in the project support office. And then from move to 4 to 5, you've got to adopt best practices. You've got metrics to track process quality, and you have project reviews to monitor compliance. Right, and you can put together a plan in order to do that, and you can put milestones to say, okay, we're going to meet maturity level 2 by whatever date, and these are the things we're going to do to get there. Then we're going to hit maturity level 3 by another date, and then maturity level 4, and then maturity level 5. All right? You can put a plan together. So what are the challenges? Speed and patience. Leadership from the bottom up. Right? You need to have a systems mentality. You need to look at enterprise-wide systems. How do you do knowledge management? And how do you figure out the project organizations? And you need to have open communications. Right, here's the organizational structure again for a large organization in the project support office. And PMs are assigned on a rotating basis, or they're all permanently assigned, or they're only assigned at the division level, or they're only assigned at the department level. Right? Different ways of doing it. You've got to maintain a professional relationship with the peers in the home department. Right? Remember, this is a hub and spoke model, so you've got people geographically distributed throughout the organization. And the aim is to between those different parts of the project support office across the enterprise, there's open communication so they can understand where everybody is in terms of their professional work. And then when they come back to the mothership, as it were, they can bring the best practices back, right, from their home business unit and pick up new ones from other people. And other things you need to do. How do you support a portfolio of projects rather than just a single project? How do you assign project managers? And what's the career and professional development? What do you do for project managers in that regard? Okay, that's chapter 15 of Wysocki 7th edition. I'm going to do chapter 16 next.